All right, so for this game, we have what is effectively just a two-tiered sequencing game. So we have the sequential component. We have these 6 books that have to be read or reviewed or discussed, apparently, between these 6 weeks. But in addition to the books, we also have to determine whether they're going to be summarized or not. So in terms of the 2 tiers, we would have the book and whether it's going to be summarized. Now, the elements themselves, we have F, K, N, O, R, and T. And in terms of the summaries, we don't actually have any numbers, do we? We don't know how many are going to be, or there's no minimum, maximum. So you know what? Yeah, let's jump right in. The first rule tells us that no 2 consecutive weeks have summarized books. So basically, we can't have 2 summaries consecutively. Next, if N is not summarized, then R and T are. So if we don't have N summarized, then, well, actually, so this kind of rule should increasingly become kind of familiar, because anytime you have a restriction that says something like, if this doesn't happen, then something else will happen, that effectively creates an inclusive relationship. And what that functionally translates into is to saying that at least one of those 2 things has to happen. When you say that if N is not summarized, then R and T will be, essentially you're basically saying that either N is going to have to be summarized, or alternatively, both R and T will be summarized. Now, to be clear, it's possible that all of that will happen in the sense that all 3 of them perhaps could be summarized. But what this is saying is that at the very least, you either have to have N be summarized, or alternatively, you'll need to have R and S both summarized. Next, N is discussed earlier than T. And so hang on, N is before T and T is before O. All right, cool. And I suppose it's worth noting that, well, I guess N and T could both be summarized, but they don't have to be. We only need one of them to be summarized, so that doesn't tell us too much. The last rule says F is before O, so I guess we can say F is going to go before O, and O is before both K and R. Oh, this is big. So let's talk about O. It's kind of in between everybody, isn't it? That is pretty much the entire lineup. So O has to be earliest at 4 and latest at 4. O has to be 4 in order to accommodate K and R, who are going to have to go into 5 and 6. And then N, T, and F are going to go somewhere in the first 3 positions. In fact, we can kind of say that in the first 3 positions, you're going to have F shuffling with N before T. So this is a pretty good start. Now, summaries, I guess we're going to have, at the very least, either N or T is going to have to be summarized, or even both, because we could even do N in 1 with T in 3. As long as they're not consecutive, they could both be summarized. And then R may or may not be summarized, depending on which way this goes. So you know what? Yeah, let's run with this. This is a pretty good start. So question number 12. What could be the complete setup? So as usual, we do these questions by the original rules. So the first rule says no 2 consecutive books are summarized. So let's see if anything violates that. Answer choice A, T and R are summarized, but they're not consecutive, so we're good. B, N and K, same deal, not consecutive. C, T, O, and R, but T and O, you'll notice, are consecutive here, so they can't both be summarized. Answer choice C gets disqualified. Answer choice D, T and O are separated, we're good. And E, T and R, they're separated, we're good. Next, we either have to have N be summarized, or alternatively both R and T. So answer choice A has T and R, that's fine. Answer choice B has N, that's fine. C is already out. D has T and O. That's not going to work, because if it's not N, it has to be both of these guys that are summarized. So we can get rid of answer choice D. And E has T and R, that's legit. Next, so now we're told that we have the NTO setup. Let's see if anything violates that. Answer choice A has NTO, B has TNO. That's not going to work. We can get rid of that. And E has NTO. We're good. And lastly, we have to have this whole thing of F before O before the KR. So between A and E, A, we're good. Basically, O is in 4 followed by R and K. Answer choice E, oh no, F cannot go after O, so we can get rid of E. leaving us with the best answer here to be A. Next, let's look at the local questions. So number 13. If N is the second book and it is not summarized, so let's see what we can do with that. So we know O is going to have to be into 4. Now, if N is a number 2 and it's not summarized, now we know that N is going to have to go before T. So T is going to be locked in 3. K and R are, as usual, going to go there. F is, of course, going to have to go into 1. But now, since N is not summarized, that means that these two guys will have to be. So T is definitely going to be summarized. And R, we don't know exactly where it goes, but it will also be summarized, which means K, for the record, won't be. Oh, and O is also not summarized since we can't have summaries consecutively. All right, cool. That's a good start. Let's take a look. The question asks, which one could be true? Answer choice A, F is summarized, and maybe this could arguably be a summary. Nothing stops that. So I guess that could be true. Let's hold on to A. Answer choice B, K is summarized, and no, because we know R already is, and they can't have both summaries. Answer choice C, O is summarized. Nope, we know it is not. Answer choice D, T is before F. No, we know T is after. And E, the third book is not. No, because we know that the third book is summarized. Best answer to question 13 is A. Next, question number 14. Let's take a look. If O is summarized, so if we have a summary under O, I suppose, well, first of all, that means that whatever is in 3 and 5 is not going to be summarized. K and R will still split between 5 and 6. Now, at this stage, I suppose F, N, and T can still kind of shuffle, can't they? Now, we know that one of N or T will have to be summarized, but even that can kind of move around, because, I mean, we're going to have F/N before T, but you could have N and T in 1 and 2, and then at that point, either one of them could be summarized, but we definitely know that one of these guys, either N or T, will have to have a summary. We just don't know which is which, so at least one of these gets summarized. So the question here asks, which of the following cannot be true? Answer choice A, F goes first. And I think that should be fine, right? If F goes into number 1, we could have NT. As long as N is summarized, we're good. So answer choice A could happen. Answer choice B, K goes 6. And yeah, I mean, K and R seems like they could flip back and forth. Next, answer choice C, F is summarized. And yeah, perhaps. I mean, we could have an F be... Actually, no. No, that couldn't happen, could it? Because... So here's the thing, we know that one of these two positions is definitely going to be summarized, but specifically, it's because one of N or T is going to have to be summarized, right? So one of those two guys is going to be summarized. So for F to also be summarized would force you to have two summarized books next to each other, which we can't do. So there we go. That cannot possibly be true. The best answer choice for question number 14 is C. Just in case, let's take a look at the rest. Answer choice D, K is not summarized. And yeah, K could easily go here, or even here, you could have no summary as long as N is the one that's getting the summary. So answer choice D could be true. E, N is not summarized. And that is possible. If we do N over here and T over there followed by F, T could be the one that gets the summary. So it could be true that N doesn't get the summary. So the best answer to question number 14, once again, is C. Next, question number 15. If neither of the last two books gets a summary, so if there's no summary in either one of these positions, and that's one of K or R, I suppose that does tell us that N is definitely getting a summary. Although I'm not sure how much that tells us, because, I mean, just to be clear, N has to get a summary because otherwise it would have to be both R and T, and in this scenario, R is not getting summarized. But still, these guys can shuffle. F, N, and T, I feel like they can move around between 1, 2, and 3. So I guess let's take a look. The question asks, which of the following now could be true? Answer choice A, K is summarized. And no, we definitely know that these two positions are not summarized, and that's going to have to be K, so that's out. Next, O is summarized. And maybe you could put in a summary over here, and as long as N is not next to it, in fact, N couldn't go next to it because T is in between them. So yeah, why couldn't O be summarized? Let's hold on to B. Answer choice C, R is summarized. And no, we know that these two positions are definitely not getting summaries, so that's out. D, F and T are summarized. Could? No, because if F and T were summarized, in addition to N getting summarized, that would mean that all three of these guys are getting summaries, and they're all next to each other, so that's not going to work. Answer choice D is out. E, N is not summarized? No, because we know that it definitely is. So, best answer to question number 15 is B. Lastly, question number 16. Which of the following if we replace the rule that F is before O and O is before both K and R? Oh boy, so that's quite a bit going on. So we're trying to replace this rule here that F is before O and O is before K and O is before R. So this whole hoverboard really. So the question here is what would ensure that all of that will happen? And remember, a good answer choice is also going to be something that happened to always be true. Let's see what we can do. Answer choice A. T goes third and, actually, so right away, this didn't have to be true. T wasn't locked into the third position. T had a little bit of flexibility. So since this never had to be true, that's a good enough reason to get rid of answer choice A. Next, answer choice B. T is earlier than F, and again, that didn't have to be true. We've seen T go later than F. T and F never had a direct relationship. So since this never had to be true, B gets disqualified. C. K and R are among the last three books, and I suppose that's fair, that's true, and F is among the first three books. That said, though, even though that was true at all times, F was always among the first three and K and R were among the last, in fact, the last two to be fair, but this wouldn't get the job done because even if all of that is true, without this rule in place, this would still leave open that O can move around quite a bit. So for example, this says that K and R are among the last three books. That would easily allow for K and R to go into 4 and 5, and then O could go 6. So this rule, even though it always had to be true, this would not ensure that all of this stuff would happen with O going in between all of them. So answer choice C isn't good enough. Answer choice D. K and R are discussed consecutively, and to be fair, that is true, not necessarily in that order, and O is fourth. Now, actually, that'll do it, won't it? I mean, it's definitely true that O had to go fourth and K and R were consecutive. But the thing is, we already knew that before the O, we had to have T and N. So if we say that O is fourth, that would have forced N and T to go into the first three positions. But according to this rule, if K and R are consecutive, they wouldn't have been able to go anywhere in the first three. There wouldn't be enough room for both of them. So if we accept this as a rule that O had to go fourth and K and R are consecutive, it would have forced the K and R to go into 5 and 6, because that's the only place where you would have two spaces available for them. And as soon as you do that, F falls into place. F ends up having to go before the O. So this answer choice, this works. This ensures that F is going to go before the O, K and R are going to go after the O in the exact same kind of way. Answer choice D is viable. Just in case, answer choice E, K and R are consecutive and F is third. Now F never had to go third, so that's a good enough reason to get rid of answer choice E. The best answer to question number 16 is D.